Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. I'm sure I'm not the first one, but welcome y'all to Texas. Those of you that are here from Gainesville. Could you see a show of hands who's here from Gainesville? Just two of you. They're coming Thursday. Okay. Okay. Well, I'll save the blah blah for Thursday. I viewed the I got the password, so I got to see your little presentation on, Krishna House for North America and all of that. I'll save it for Thursday. Really valuable service for Prabhupada's mission. And let's see it happen here in Houston. I'll go right to the Bhagavad. There's some history for you in once upon a time in Houston, ISKCON, and so forth. We're discussing Uddhava Gita, and I made some explanations yesterday about the intricacies that our acharyas have taken, particularly these verses. This is kind of like the concluding section of 3 chapters. Knowledge and renunciation, jnana vairagya, to nourish bhakti, or bhakti nourishes jnana vairagya, both. And the speaker is an Avadhuta Brahman, which our acharyas indicate as Dattatreya. They don't even say Avadhuta Brahman. They just say Dattatreya said. And the series of verses we're discussing in the morning session these days is Sambandha Gyan, details of the universe and the universe's relationship with the source of the universe, and Shakti, and the transformation of the Lord's Shaktis and how he extends it through his time energy and then withdraws it. And since it's all temporary, be attached to the source, meditate upon that which is the source of everything. However, there's some intricacies. And that's where we, like, not an apology, but just an explanation that it's the intricacy is, maybe Krishna Consciousness 301. It's not 101. It's not even 201. It's kind of 301. It's very involved. So if you're interested in details, that's what you're going to get. And if you're not interested, I don't know what to say. I mean, I offered for the brahmacharis here. If it's not something relevant to you, let me know, because we're going there. And it's not moving. Somebody help me. Oh, there we go. There we go. Whoop. It moved too much. There we go. Here's the verse. 17 and 18 are combined. The commentary is going to touch on several things, but a focus is going to go to the word kaivalya. We spent some time yesterday and again today and again tomorrow. Kaivalya, Kevala Bhakti and Kevala Advaita. Mayavadis like the word Kevala in terms of absolute monism. Devotees like the word Kevala in terms of absolute bhakti, Shuddha Bhakti. And Kevala can have these other meanings. like Kaivalya, we're going to hear. We heard yesterday, we hear it again. It can also mean the Supreme Lord himself, who is absolutely pure, and the process of connecting with him, which is also Kaivalya. It can mean different things, depending upon the context and depending upon those kinds of things. So I'm going to read the verse, and then we're going to go to Jiva Goswami and sit at his feet and have him lift our consciousness by his explanations. Okay. Here's the translation for verses 17 and 18, the verse that you see on the screen here. When the Supreme Personality of Godhead displays his own potency in the form of time and guides his material potency, such as the mode of goodness, into a neutral condition of equilibrium, that's describing the withdrawal of the cosmic manifestation, the state of equilibrium. He remains as the supreme controller of that neutral state called Pradhan, as well as of the living entities. He is also the supreme worshipable object for all beings, including liberated souls, demigods, and ordinary conditioned souls. The Lord is eternally free from all material designations, and he constitutes the totality of spiritual bliss, which one experiences by seeing the Lord's spiritual form. The Lord thus exhibits the fullest meaning of the word, quote, liberation. So we're going to touch on 3 commentaries by Jiva Goswami. 2 of them are from Priti Sandarbha. Priti Sandarbha is the final of the 6 Sandarbhas. Priti Sandarbha is the Sambandha Abhideya Prayojana. It's the fruit of bhakti, the culmination of bhakti. Prayojana. So priti is, or prema, Jiva Goswami likes the word priti. And he refers to this verse that we're discussing in the morning in the introduction of Priti Sandarbha, although it's about Sambandha. Here we go. Kaivalya means the state of purity. This is from his introduction to that Sandarbha. Kaivalya means the state of purity, Kevala. Connected with the previous verse, the meaning is that Bhagavatam indicates Kaivalya as the highest human goal. That's the Priti Sandarbha connection. It has been stated that the root of the jiva's fault is his lack of knowledge concerning the supreme truth. We discussed that. I'll repeat it. Buddhism teaches the root cause of all suffering is desire. Vaishnava teaching is the root cause of all suffering is ignorance, which then influences the desire of the living entity for ignorant desire, and the ignorant desire results in ignorant activity, results in suffering. Or one of our brahmacharis cited the invocation commentary by Srila Prabhupada. Any form of incompleteness is due to an incomplete understanding of the complete whole. That celebrated statement of Prabhupada. That's what's being said here. So if you want to come to the goal, you have to have proper sambandha again. You have to understand these things. Gosh, it's really difficult. So now he's going to quote a verse from an earlier chapter of Canto 11, chapter 2. That's the Navayogendra speaking to King Nimi. No, excuse me. Anyway, for the jiva averse to the Lord, there will be samsara consisting of identity with body and lack of identity with the soul because of his absorption in the material coverings on the soul arising from the Lord's Maya. Therefore, the intelligent person, taking Guru as his very self, should fully worship the Lord with pure bhakti. So bhakti cuts through the covering. The obstacle is the covering, and we're attached to it. Thus, the pure state of knowledge, the pure state is knowledge of the Lord. I mean, the pure state is love for the Lord, but the object needs to be known. Thus, Kaivalya means realization of the Lord, as previously explained, or Kaivalya refers to the nature of the Lord from Skanda Purana. Oh, Lord, you alone have that nature of Kaivalya, which cannot be achieved by Brahmashiva or the Devatas. Sometimes Kaivalya means, quote, Supreme Lord, as in the following. And he quotes this verse, 17, 18 from chapter 9. When the Lord, Kaivalya, brought his energies, such as sattva, to equilibrium by his powerful energy of time, the Lord who enjoys in himself, who is the controller of Prakriti and the jivas, who is worshipped by liberated and conditioned jivas, remained in the form of complete bliss without Maya. Of course, that translation is slightly different than the BBT one, but that's okay. It follows the Sanskrit. In either case, in this verse, Kaivalya means realization of the Lord or the nature of the Lord. Bhagavatam's goal is to give realization of the Lord. Sutta speaks the verse. So that's in his introduction to Priti Sandarbha. And now it's a little bit long. I hope you have your seatbelt tightly fastened because we're going to go into Bhakti Bhagavat Sandarbha. Bhagavat Sandarbha is still, it's in the Sambandha Gyan section of the Sandarbhas, but it's understanding the Lord, in this case, in his relationship with his energies. Bhagavan has bhagas, and his bhagas are 6 in number, and they're unlimited. He has unlimited potencies, Nija Sarva Shaktis. So we're going to hear about them. If the Lord mixes with Maya, liberation would be impossible. If liberation cannot be achieved, then bliss cannot be achieved. Maya is described to show that the Lord does not mix with it at all. And I understand the Bhaktas are reading from Canto 1, Chapter 7, right? No? Here's Canto 1, Chapter 7, text 23. You are the original Lord, the controller beyond material energy. You are situated in your spiritual form, being one with your spiritual energy and separate from the material energy. So these are an evidence to say that source is not in direct touch with his material energy. It's his separated energy. Commentary, you yourself are Bhagavan, the first Purusha, Adya Purushaha. You are also the Antaryami Purushaha, Ishvara. You do not associate with Prakriti, Prakrite Para, as Bhagavan or Paramatma. Doubt. How can one experience the bliss of Kaivalya if Brahman is defined as Bhagavan? because we, Vaishnavas understand that whatever the word Brahman is there, it implies Bhagavan because sunshine implies the sun. But if Brahman is understood as Bhagavan or defined as Bhagavan, if he is the controller of Prakriti as Ishwar, how can he not associate with Prakriti? Answer. He keeps this Abhas Shakti far away by his fixed Swarup Shakti. And by his Swarup Shakti, he is situated in his own Swarup, which is full of its own experience of bliss, Kaivalye. Got it? We hear, Prabhupada's very simple form. Krishna doesn't directly contact his material energy, it's through the agency of his own potencies they're contacted, including Lord Shiva and so forth. He doesn't directly contact. So what's the scriptural support and the logic behind all that? That's what we're getting. He has his Swarup Shakti, that is the basis of his Swarup. You can say it either way. We discussed this yesterday. His Swarup has Swarup Shakti. His Swarup Shakti manifests his Swarup. And through that Swarup Shakti, he holds material energy at a distance. Although it's under his control, he has no direct contact with it. Look at that. Here comes this verse again, 17 and 18. When he brought his energies, such as tattva, to equilibrium by his powerful energy of time, the Lord who enjoys in himself, who is the controller of Prakriti and the jivas, who is worshipped by liberated and conditioned souls, remained in the form of complete bliss, called Kaivalya, without Maya. So, from Bhagavad Sandarbha, one of the messages that Jiva Goswami wants us to understand from this verse is, there's multiple. The material energy is not in direct contact with the Lord. The context for all of this is that same image, this image. This is Uddhava. And Uddhava is at the feet of Krishna in Dwarka. And two things. He knows Krishna is about to depart because he's so close to Krishna, he knows. And the second is, so he wants Krishna to take him with him. And if that's not possible, he wants to remain always cognizant of Krishna, but he's got a problem. He says, I'm too much attached to family life. So how do I overcome this attachment to family life? Didn't say I want to take sannyas. How do you overcome undue attachment to family life? Why? For the purpose of knowing Krishna at all times and all circumstances, even when he isn't present. That's a very valuable question for us. So that knowledge of detachment is there, but where does it lead to? Krishna tells Uddhava this whole 24 guru story that the Avaduta Brahman or Dattatreya is explaining to King Yadu, the predecessor king of both the same family line as Uddhava and Krishna, about knowledge of detachment leading to attachment to the Supreme. So if you're going to learn about detachment, you need to learn about attachment to transcendence. And one of the ways to understand attachment to transcendence is to understand this place that we move around. I mean, when we walk out, we're going to see nice landscaping here taken care of by the devotees and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to see the material world around us. And it's quite natural to take it as real. Is it? And is there something behind it? And how to become attached to that something behind it? So there's a Sambandha teaching that tells us the whole thing is manifest by The Lord's energy, although it's remote control. That's the idea. And bhakti means to become attached to the source while we're navigating our way through the temporary, according to our nature. In the Bhagavatam, it is also said, Svayam upalabdha nija sukhanubhava bhavan, or you experience happiness within yourself. That's important for us to know. In that state, when it's manifest or withdrawn, the Lord is bliss. He's experiencing bliss. And you contact him, you'll feel something. Just like if you contact fire, you'll feel something. The word sandoha, or profusion of bliss, that's in this verse here. The word sandoha indicates variety, which arises because of variety in the Shakti. This is the Swarup Shakti. So that's good to know. Swarup Shakti is not just a thing or one homogeneous blob or potency. It's variegated potency, and there's variegated bliss. And sometimes, and that's what Lila is. It's an exhibition of the Lord's potencies as he's enjoying. And he's enjoying giving pleasure to his devotees and is enjoying within himself. And he's full of bliss with variegated potencies. This is the Swarup Shakti. Prakriti refers to the Maya composed of the three gunas. Sridhar Swami has described the three Shaktis in this way. So, three living entities, external and internal potencies. Devahuti says, to support the argument he's making or the case that he's making, I surrender unto Kapila, whose other form is Prakriti, who is also the Jiva, the Mahatattva, time, Sutra, Ahankar, the Devatas of the directions, the universe, inhabited by your internal energy, and the possessor of independent energies. Ooh. This is now speaking of the non-difference, which was in just the previous verse, text 16. He's one with his energies, but they're separate from him by his Swarup Shakti. He's very masterful. We can't do those things, but he can. In the commentary on that Devahuti verse, I surrender to the Lord, Param, who is in this position because he has his independent Shaktis. The Shakti is described. You are Prakriti, or Pradhan. You are the Purusha, the controller of Prakriti. We heard this. He likes to use this word Ishvara as the Paramatma feature because he controls, Paramatma controls the material energies, which are his. You are Mahatattva, and you are time, the agitator of Prakriti, and Mahatattva. You are the Hankar, which produces the planets and their protectors. After describing the forms produced by Maya, the forms are described as merging into him by the Chit Shakti. I offer respects to the Lord, in whom the world is merged by his Chit Shakti. Atmanubhutya. That's in this verse 17, 18. Atmanubhutya, and who is omniscient, the witness of the manifestation of Pradhan. It's a little intricate, isn't it? We used this example yesterday. I like Jiva Goswami's example. If you look at a tapestry or embroidery under some magnification, what does it look like? It looks very confusing. There's this color, that color, some moving this way, some moving that way, and it doesn't make sense. You take away the magnification and, oh, look at that beautiful embroidery. So if you're going to be Lord Brahma someday, maybe, you need to know this technology. And if you're not going to be Lord Brahma, you don't need to know all this technology. You can go back to Godhead if you don't understand all this. It's quite okay. But if we want to understand the greatness of the personality of Godhead who Brahma is serving, there's all this detail. And there's scriptural support for understanding each of these statements. And it all fits together very nicely. And it's not once upon a time there was a singularity and exploded. There's lots of detail. Spiritual science. 301. Here we go. Jiva Goswami. The Purusha is included in Maya as its controller. Factually, the Purusha is beyond Maya. Kapila says, quote, this Atma is the Purusha. Now, sometimes Atma can mean the Supreme. This Atma is the Purusha who is eternal without material qualities, since he is beyond Prakriti, who is beyond the senses, who has a spiritual abode, who is self-manifesting, and from whom this universe, owned by him, appears. He's building his case. Mahasamhita describes the three Shaktis by name and nature. Quote, Shri, Bhu, and Durga, sometimes Nila. Shri, Bhu, and Durga are different names for the Jiva Maya Shakti, or material Shakti of the Lord, for maintenance, creation, and destruction of the universe. It is my Swarup Shakti as my desire, and also material Shakti as matter. Mahasamhita. Shri is the Shakti to protect the universe. Bhu is the Shakti for creation of the universe. Guess what's left? Durga is the Shakti of destruction. The Shakti takes these different forms. That Shakti, with Jiva as its object, is called Jiva Maya. Now, those same Shibu and Durga or Shibu and Nila, they have their spiritual counterparts. Yes? In traditionally, in Sri Vaishnava deity worship, along with the Lord is Shri and Bhu. And they're not the material potencies. They're the spiritual counterpart. It is said in the Padma Purana, I exist in three different forms with the three gunas. Next, from Padma Purana. All the Devatas, hearing this, inspired by those words, filled with devotion, offered respects to Gauri, or Durga, Lakshmi, or Shri, and Dhara, or Bhu. Continuing with 11th Canto, Chapter 3, quote, I have now described Maya, the illusory energy of the Supreme Lord, which consists of the three modes of material nature and causes creation, maintenance, and annihilation of the material universe. Now, what more do you wish to hear? That's the Navayogendras. Atma Maya refers to the Swarup Shakti. Maya means that by which something is measured or produced or known. Thus, Maya can refer to any Shakti in general. Okay, we're getting... Something that will start to make its way into ISKCON is some work that the Shastra Advisory Council has been working on for maybe 10 years. And it's a course on hermeneutics. What's that? Hermeneutics is how to understand Prabhupada's writings in simple terms. And so there's procedures. And it's now being taught to our, some of the Bhakti Shastri instructors that learn from VIHE and other places. So those teachers will start to teach us, or the Prabhus. So instead of just one of the cautions in the whole of hermeneutics, don't just take something that's over here and say that's it. When there's a whole lot of stuff that's not the whole picture. What's the whole picture? You have to read Prabhupada's books to get the whole picture. You can't just take something over here and Maya means this. No, we're getting an education. Maya means energy in general. And then it can be, depending upon context, it can mean this or that or the other thing or the other thing. And we have to be a little flexible. Not like imaginary. Imagine can mean whatever we want it to mean. So Jiva Goswami is guiding us to have a better understanding of when we read the word Maya, what does it mean? Going now to Canto 10, Chapter 13, this is the exchange with Lord Brahma, the Brahma Vimohan Leela experience, Chapter 13. As the darkness of snow on a dark night cannot cover darkness, and the light of a glowworm in the light of the day cannot reveal the sun, the power of an inferior person who tries to use it against a person of great power destroys his own ability. Brahma's statement agrees with this. There are differences in the Shakti. Very little Shakti may produce either falsity or truth and bring about defeat. That is understood in this verse. That is shown by two examples, darkness and light. It is said in the Puranas that many were scattered by weapons made of Maya in battle. In that case, Maya does not mean something false. One cannot become wet by illusory water in the desert. Now he's confronting Mayavad philosophy. This microphone stand. Can you tighten? Because it keeps sagging. Raghava, check this little doodad here, or maybe we'll do this. Okay, great. Okay, thank you. Quoting from Chatur Veda Shikha. The Lord is endowed with his eternal Shakti called Maya, arising from his Swarup. Thus, the wise call eternal Vishnu Mayamayam, or made of Maya. However, Atma Maya refers to the Ichcha Shakti. Okay, what's that? The potency of desire. Then that rests in the soul. Living entities have tiny capacity of free will, Ichcha Shakti. The Lord has unlimited Ichcha Shakti. Atma Maya. Jnana and Kriya Shaktis are included. Some of you like to listen to Prabhupada, probably most of you. And one of the verses that you hear from Prabhupada repeatedly is Parasya Shakti Vivadaiva Shruyate Swabhavaki Jnana Bala Kriyacha. Meaning, the Supreme Lord has unlimited Parasya Shakti. All of his Shaktis are para, transcendental. And there's so many, and there's categories and subcategories of those categories, but Jnana Shakti, Bala Shakti, Kriya Shakti, that has its effect in the spiritual and in the material realm, because it's the Lord Shakti. So that's what is being referred to here. He's just giving us like a big picture of when you hear Shakti or you hear Maya, what bells should go off. And it means a lot of different things. So we have to be clear what it means in context. He wants us, this is Bhagavad Sandarbha, wanting us to understand the relationship of the Lord Shaktis with him. It's not Paramatma Sandarbha where it's specific to creation, although it's not, Bhagavan is the support or the source from which the Paramatma expands. So, but it's the Lord Shaktis and the relationship between him and his Shaktis. Here's another meaning. Vishva Prakash, that's a dictionary, says that Maya means falsity or mercy, which are two different meanings. Sridhar Swami explains Maya as illusion or knowledge in the phase of Maya, Maye, Jive. That's a reference from Uddhava Gita. Thus, it has been shown that Atma Maya is of three types: Icha, Jnana, Kriya. Jnana, Bala, and Kriya is another reference, so that means there's some relationship between Icha and Bala. Through Jiva Maya, though Jiva Maya is called the desire of the Lord, that is an abhas only, since it is understood that the desire to create the universe is not directly the Lord's desire. Ooh. Gunamaya refers to Pradhan, made of the three gunas, again referring to Canto 1, Chapter 7. You are the original Lord, the controller beyond material energy. You are situated in your spiritual form, being one with your spiritual energy and separate from the material energy by your spiritual energy. In reference to this verse quoted earlier, there is another meaning, if you're not confused yet. Maya is forbidden in Vaikuntha directly by the spiritual Shakti. You are situated in your own expansion, Vaikuntha. How do you do that? You keep Maya far away by your Chit Shakti, which always exists there. Sukadev forbids Maya in Vaikuntha. This is the last reference, by the way. This is from Canto 2, Chapter 9, an important chapter in the Bhagavatam. In Vaikuntha, there is no rajas or tamas, no sattva mixed with rajas and tamas. There is no influence of time. There is no influence of Maya at all. What to speak of its products, such as material elements. In Vaikuntha, the inhabitants are fully dedicated to the Lord and worshipable by the devas, asuras, and devotees. Final, according to Padma Purana, there are synonyms for Vaikuntha. Here they are. Moksha, Parampada, Lingam, Amritam, and Vishnu Mandiram. These are all synonyms for Vaikuntha. So this is not specifically a commentary on this verse, but it's expanding an understanding that resonates with this verse, and this verse is referred to several times by Jiva Goswami. And in our audience here is this nice devotee who made these images to help expand the understanding of Uddhava Gita. You'll see some more tomorrow. Here's the text that's being illustrated. When the Supreme Personality of Godhead displays his own potency in the form of time and guides his material potencies, such as the mode of goodness, into a neutral condition of equilibrium, he remains as the supreme controller of that neutral state called pradhan, as well as of the living entities. He is also the supreme worshipable object for all beings, including liberated souls, demigods, and ordinary conditioned souls. The Lord is eternally free from any material designation, and he constitutes the totality of spiritual bliss, which one experiences by seeing the Lord's spiritual form. The Lord thus exhibits the fullest meaning of the word liberation. So just again, stepping back, look at the big tapestry and take a look at it, the big picture. Just as Bhagavad Gita is very important, Uddhava Gita is very important. Commonly, Prabhupada speaks of Bhagavad Gita is spoken directly by Krishna, Bhagavatam is spoken about Krishna. Well, here's Krishna speaking about Krishna as like Bhagavad Gita. And the detail is more complex than Bhagavad Gita. But it's not different ideas, it's just graduate study. And then our acharyas are taking us into the refinements of that graduate study, in case, we'd like to understand the refinements of graduate study. The purpose of all of this is bhakti. But to reach bhakti, there's sometimes an obstacle. The obstacle is our attachment to the temporary. Asat, Trishna, in the language of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, is one of the sources of anarthas in the heart. One of the primary sources. How to get rid of anarthas in the heart if you're attached to the temporary. You won't. You can practice bhakti for a long time, and it doesn't happen so quickly. Why doesn't it happen so quickly? Attachment to the temporary. It's one of the sources of the anarthas in the heart, and it blocks. Anarthas have the power to block the power of bhakti. I'll say it again. Anarthas have the power to block the power of bhakti. Now, it can't stop bhakti. The example is given. That statement is Jiva Goswami's in Bhakti Sandarbha, where the clouds in the sky can't block the light of the sun, but the full illumination of the sun is blocked by the clouds in the sky. We don't get the full effect. Similarly, we don't get the full effect of bhakti because of anarthas, which block the power of bhakti. They don't go away easily. All of us have experienced that. They don't go away easily. So we have the method of bhakti to strengthen our bhakti by chanting nicely. But one of the offenses against chanting is distraction, inattentiveness when chanting. And when you're inattentive when you're chanting, because you're attached to the temporary. What to do? It's kind of circular. So, good news. Bhagavatam has the effect, along with chanting, Bhagavatam has the effect of removing that affinity for the temporary. Keep reading the Bhagavatam, Prabhus. And even you're not understanding it, keep hearing it and reading it and discussing it to your capacity with faith. That's important. More than important, it's essential. With faith, it'll take you to the other side of that affinity for the temporary. Now, if you don't have any disregard for that affinity for the temporary, you're not going to progress spiritually very quickly. You certainly won't understand Krishna. And like this says, experiencing directly the form of the Lord, the highest bliss is experienced. I'll read it again. The Lord is eternally free from any material designation, and he constitutes the totality of spiritual bliss, which one experiences by seeing the Lord's spiritual form. So we can see the Lord's spiritual form. Those of you who are visiting, beautiful deity worship, isn't it? Whew. And we can see the beautiful form, and the experience is going to be different for different observers, without going into what those differences of experience might be. But to actually see this is the form of the Lord, that's an elevated soul. And it takes we can appreciate the details of the deity dress and the ornaments and the markings on Neela Madhava's face and Radharani's face and hands and everything. Our garland makers, they're really good at making garlands and the nice garlands and so we appreciate those things, but in a devotional way, we can appreciate those things from the spiritual platform or the mixed platform or the material platform. So hearing the Bhagavatam helps us move to the spiritual direction, or sarva upadi vinirmuktam, becoming freed from the affinity for the upadis, or anarthas, or abhadras, or unwanted things. The Bhagavatam has that capacity. This is a topic that I want to speak some more about Friday morning. The connection between the chanting and hearing Srimad Bhagavatam and how one helps the other. Stay tuned Friday morning. I'm meditating on it every day. Let's see what comes out. So let's see if there's some discussion. It's 24 after the hour. Now we have a portable microphone, and I'm the only one that doesn't have to wear a mask. I'm a privileged person because I got a microphone in front of me. But when you speak, you can just take your mask down, then put it back when you're done. And, really good social distancing, compliments. Well done.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. I like this whole discussion. Technology talked about how complex, looking closer into the tapestry. Now, the one thing I'm also here as part of your
hold the microphone like this, because it's
like
not
this. Okay.
it's not a multi-directional microphone.
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
Is this clear?
Oh, it's much better.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
And keep it like that too.
Yes. Okay. So I did hear that seeing Lord or seeing divinity in material nature is an essence for devotional service. So the question is.
It's a comment, not a question.
Oh, okay.
Are you asking a question?
Yeah, this was a comment based on what I'm hearing in one of the classes. So I'm just trying to confirm. While the source is, we get into all this technology details, the Lord is the source of energy.
Yeah.
And yes,
yeah.
And
God is good, God is great, but how great is God that they do not know? So we're getting some of the greatness. And there's more. We're going to hear about a spider and all kinds of interesting. It's how God is great. Here's a Jiva Goswami coming up. It speaks of like a spider. It's more than one place. from his mouth comes a web, and he moves around the web and does his thing, then he withdraws the web. So like that, the Lord expands his potencies and withdraws his potencies. Jiva Goswami says, the metaphor has limits because the spider has to eat something to make the saliva, to make the web, and then he withdraws the web. But Krishna doesn't have to eat anything. He's independent. He's absolutely independent. Could you, right to your side? Can we have a young person that do this? Yes, thank you. Mask down just while you speak, thanks.
Thank you for the wonderful class.
Oh, that's much better. Remember, it's unidirectional.
Okay.
Okay.
So in the Gita, Prabhupada explains knowledge is to know matter, spirit, and the controller of both.
Yeah.
You're explaining that we don't have to understand all of the details. So I'm wondering, what do we need to know about matter, spirit, and
The
the
principle.
controller?
The principle. Now, what you need to know is what's in Bhagavad Gita. Then that's the undergraduate, graduate, and postgraduate. As you become attracted to Krishna, you want to know more about Krishna. And as you know more about Krishna, your attraction for Krishna grows. How wonderful is my Lord. So it's sufficient. Supposing someone is a very simple-hearted person, this is like, then you can just look at the sun and say, I'm feeling gratitude in my heart for these gifts that Krishna has given, the air that we breathe, and it's in light of the sun, and etc. So what's needed is to strike the heart, and that's sufficient. It's sufficient. At the same time, it's not like, well, for those that are intellectually and cerebral, we have all this detail. It's also an appreciation. I mean, some people go there, but it's an appreciation of how great is Krishna. And what's the limit to the greatness of Krishna? Answer, there isn't. Supposing somebody likes, the understanding of loving exchanges. Is there a limit? There's no limit. There's no limit. What's the limit? There's no limit. Like somebody, I think it was Uddhava, did you ask this question? Ramayana teaches us certain lessons about virtue and so forth. What's the lesson from the Bhagavatam and Krishna's pastimes? And my answer was rasa. And our acharyas really go to town with rasa. It's not like the other things aren't there, but that's that the loving exchanges between Krishna and his devotees is it's unparalleled, even amongst all the other forms of the Lord, and that's the lesson. Krishna is he's all attractive. So maybe there's a limit to hearing about the attractiveness of Krishna. There's no limit. No limit. Okay, great, Kalakanta, and then behind him.
Thank you, Maharaj, for that wonderful, thought-provoking class.
Head spinning. Hey, we're Jiva Goswami followers, right?
So I was reflecting yesterday that the gopis did not understand these topics or discuss them very much. But I was just curious what you think about this verse from the Gita where Krishna says, Pashyam me yogam aishwaram. He's saying, I pervade everything, and yet myself is the very source of creation. And it's almost as if he's bragging to Arjuna. Behold my mystic opulence.
Would you want me to comment on that?
What are your thoughts? His attitude about the whole thing and how the jivas have such a hard time understanding it.
Well, a short comment, it's quite mystical. But, aside from Krishna and his potencies being quite mystical, his pastimes are quite mystical. And the exchanges, and why does Krishna do this, and why does Radharani do that, and it's very amazing. I mean, because we've been discussing Ramayana every evening up until Ram Navami and now continue. There's so many hard to understand things in Ram's Leela. Like, Ram's omniscience, because he's the Supreme Lord, and then he's feeling all these feelings and saying these things, like the question came yesterday. Our host at the program, at the home visit yesterday, Amol Bakshi, was saying, even when Ram was in Chitrakoot, he had a sacrificial fire, and he wasn't like on display for anybody. It was just him, Lakshman, and Sita, and he was worshiping and observing, and as if he's one of us, although he's omniscient. But he's playing the role. He's, it's the pastime of, he's a worldly king, an ideal king. The ideal king doesn't just do something in public and something else in private. So he's enjoying that it's part of his unlimited bliss to perform the activities of Lord Ram, including when Sita is kidnapped, going, he's enjoying, but he's omniscient. So my response to your question here is, it's very mystical. I'm tempted to say a few other things, but there's some hands up. Let's go. Uttam Bhakta, right behind you. Uttam Bhakta had his hand up quite a while ago. Then you can be next. You're next. I promise you.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Just a few clarifications from this lecture. The word separated was used in relation to the material energy. My understanding is that it's not a stepchild.
It's not a what?
It's not a stepchild.
What's the word? Stepchild.
Yeah.
Stepchild?
Yes. But
what do you mean by that, please?
Yeah.
It is not a stepchild. What do you mean by that?
And that's what I'm trying to clarify. And so, but rather, I'm thinking of it as it doesn't influence Lord.
It doesn't have?
It does not influence Lord.
Okay.
Is that the right understanding?
It's one of the right understandings. There's multiple.
Okay. Okay.
Certainly that understanding is the right understanding.
Okay.
There are others also.
Okay, because sometimes the word separated brings this impression, or it may bring impression that the Lord has, thrown it away, just nothing to do with it. But we know that the material energy.
You're holding it too close. It's too loud. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay. Now keep going.
So the Lord, it is Lord's energy, but it doesn't influence the Lord. So just that clarification.
That's another correct understanding. And there's more.
And so the other question I have is, when you mentioned three energies of Shri, Bhu, and Durga. By Durga, I am understanding it's synonymous with Lord Shiva.
The consort of Lord Shiva, yeah.
So can we use Durga or Shiva interchangeably here?
No. Shiva has his Shakti. And, that is assigned to him because of the service that he does to carry the glance of Vishnu. So he has his potency, Durga, and she does her thing.
Okay, so.
But Brahma Samhita, she's under Krishna's direction.
Mm-hmm.
Correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
The last one I have is Srila Prabhupada, the right way to understand what Srila Prabhupada is saying. Up until now, my understanding has been that Srila Prabhupada has written commentaries and Srila Prabhupada has given lectures. And then he has written letters or he has had conversations, private conversations with his disciples. So, sometimes there may be some conflict or confusing things. So in my life, I have taken this standard or a guideline that what Srila Prabhupada is saying in commentaries in Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, or Chaitanya Charitamrita, or other books, and in his standard lectures on those books, that those will be held higher than the private conversations or the private letters because they may be personal instructions.
You're a candidate for the hermeneutics seminar. And you'll understand so much more than what you just said. You're a good candidate. When you hear it's available, take the course, please. You'll be like tickled and you'll be dancing. But what's in his books has greater weight, and his lectures has greater weight than his conversations. Okay?
Uddhava Maharaj.
See, we kept our word.
Yes. Okay. What's that?
We kept our word. You get to put microphone next.
How's that? Is that better? Worse? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
That's good.
You're good.
Okay.
You're good.
Yeah, the hermeneutics was just what I was referring to with this gentleman here. What I see over the years is devotees, advanced and neophyte, come to a certain platform and they're not put in context. As you mentioned, context is so important. And with this media stuff that's going on, you're getting more and more splinter groups from people with partial understanding of Prabhupada's works. And I think the hermeneutics is a good answer, and I'm glad to hear that from you.
Exactly. In fact, that's one of the reasons that they started the work, without going into the detail. Thank you. Anybody else in the room? And otherwise, we're going to go online. Oh, here we go.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Pull your mask down just while you speak. Thanks.
Yes. Hare Krishna Maharaj. Krishna left Uddhava on this earthly planet and sent him to Badrikashram. How long Uddhava stay on this earthly planet?
That's a good question. I don't know. What Krishna says in chapter 6 is he is going to depart along with the whole Yadu dynasty, but he's going to leave behind Uddhava, something like Ram leaving Hanuman behind, something like it. And he has two purposes: take this teaching to the Narayan Rishi followers and travel about the earth and give this message to others. Doesn't say how long he stayed. I'm unaware. I could ask if some of our scholars may have the answer, but I don't know. Anyone here in the room know how long he remained on earth? And if there's anybody online that knows that, you can send a message in online. Okay, we're going to do our online. You have an answer to that question? Or you have another question? Go ahead and way in the back. Way in the back. All the way in the back.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Maharaj. One of the last comments you made about that we need to be free from the attachment from temporary. And to do that, we need to definitely chant good rounds. When we chant, we still have, because of those temporary attachment, we cannot chant properly. And for that, you made a comment that Srimad Bhagavatam is the answer to that. So I would like to hear that part one more time. Could you please elaborate?
Tado rajastamo bhava kama lobhadayasya echeta etayanad vidyam stitvam sattve prasidati. You familiar? You like to read Prabhupada's book, so you know the verse, right? Canto 1, Chapter 2. Vidhunoti sarit satam. You know that verse. Nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttamashloke bhaktir bhavati. So that section explains what I said, or what I said is an expansion of what that section is. There's abhadras, unwanted things, impure contaminations, and the nature of hearing the Bhagavatam is slowly, imperceptibly perhaps, that cleansing is going on. The affinity for the temporary is diminished, and the modes of nature influence is diminished, etc. It's an essential part. Shravanam is an essential part of the bhakti process. It's the first item, and it has an effect. And it helps. It's not a replacement for, but it helps the chanting without distraction. Because what's distraction? As you said, distraction is the mind is going to the temporary and going in, in the future and in the past. We're not with the name. So what's going to help us? Something that will help us. There's other things that can help us. Serve the devotees of the Lord. That will help us. Okay? Online. Is there someone in the room else? Shyam Sundar, you were motioning to someone. Okay. Our online people sometimes feel neglected and they start to cry or they start to complain. So let's go online.
A question from Sanchari. Is there a reason why Bhagavatam itself doesn't do a deep dive into rasa, and why it was the commentaries by the Goswamis or other great devotees that expand on it in a much deeper manner, especially as the Bhagavatam is the summum bonum of all Vedic literature?
Well, it does, and the assertion has some flaw. It does go into rasa, and our acharyas are just like really gifted at stirring and elaborating and so forth. So they're just helping us get what's already there. It's not like it wasn't there.
Next question from Amara Devidasi. I am trying to contemplate on what are some symptoms of attraction in this material world, and hoping that might give some idea of the spiritual attraction. Can you kindly comment?
Thank you for making that effort. That's my comment. And so there's these two things, the temporary and the eternal. Nasate vijite bhavo, na bhavo vijite sataha. Second chapter, Bhagavad Gita. Ubayor api drishtrontas tvanyas tatvadarshibhihi. So associate with tattvadarshis, and you'll be less attracted to the temporary and more attracted to the eternal. Because the tattvadarshis, they like to talk about tattva instead of the temporary. And then you'll understand more about the subject matter. Is that it? Okay, we're going to end. Thank you very much. Prabhupada ki jai.